Good evening. I'm Tracy Grimshaw, and welcome to A Current Affair. Tonight, a paramedic's return from maternity leave turns tragic, leaving a young family devastated. So how is it that this upstanding citizen has found herself embroiled in a heated legal and ethical debate in which, tragically, a young child died? The crew were responding Code 1 to an unresponsive 9-month-old. Speeding through an intersection on the way to the job, the crew collided with a hatchback carrying a young mother and a daughter. Maxine may play the role of the apologetic paramedic. However, she justifies her insidious actions with the supposed defence of the ethical theories, deontology, justice, and rural utilitarianism. The most prominent of these aforementioned ethical theories that explain Maxine's dastardly decision is deontology. Maxine felt that staying on the scene was the right thing to do in her position, as she was responsible for the RTC. In addition to this, she also felt duty-bound, both as a paramedic and as an upstanding citizen, to remain on scene. However, Maxine's choice to stay and play resulted in the death of her original 9-month-old patient. Despite this, Maxine continued, stating that the negative consequences regarding the original patient are considered of less importance than Maxine's duty to stay on the scene and help the patient she herself inadvertently injured. Maxine says that if she were to leave the scene in an attempt to treat her original infant patient, she would be abandoning her duty to the public as a paramedic and a Good Samaritan. Further sinister support for Maxine's decision is found, ironically, in the bioethic of justice. The theory of justice can be broken down into 3 distinct parts. Supposedly, all 3 of these ethical concepts influenced Maxine's fiendish choice in staying on scene. For example, the notion of legal justice influenced Maxine's decision to stay on scene, as it would have been illegal for her to leave the site of the RTC, as she was not only involved in it, but she was the direct cause. But this problematic paramedic just isn't content using paltry state law as a shield. She is adamant that her decision-making is supported by distributive and rights-based justice. She believes that her involvement in the crash made her legally and ethically obliged to remain on scene. However, she claims she did not ignore her original infant patient's legal rights to receive medical attention. By having another crew dispatched to the 9-month-old child, Maxine soullessly states that she fairly distributed a scarce resource while advocating both patients' right to receive treatment as dictated by the Ambulance Service Act. Therefore, the theoretical concept of justice supports her legal and ethical decision to remain at the RTC. Maxine claims that the principles of rural utilitarianism essentially forced her into the ethical decision to remain on scene, as everyone in similar situations is morally obliged to do the same and render aid if possible. These laws are directly linked to the moral basis of rural utilitarianism because the beneficial consequences of remaining at the scene of an RTC vastly outweigh that of fleeing the scene. Maxine tries to cower behind an example, stating the occupant of a vehicle can perform life-saving first aid on another injured occupant only if they remain on scene, and as such, it should be considered a social and ethical norm for people to stay at an RTC.
Maxine's actions leading up to the event are not defendable, as she was not acting per the Ambulance Service Act. In fact, she approached the red light in a way which broke her duty of upholding non-maleficence in her practice. Her actions go beyond what Queensland Ambulance can defend and must be condemned. The action which I can defend is Maxine's decision to stay at the scene of the crash, rather than continuing on to the original call. It all boils down to what the Queensland Ambulance Service and what state and federal law deem to be the proper course of action, both ethically and legally in this situation. Staying on the scene of a crash invokes the ethical theories of deontology, justice, non-maleficence, and rural utilitarianism. The Transport Operation Act states that road users involved in a crash where occupants of other parties are injured must stay on scene and ensure aid is sought for the injured. Therefore, staying on scene was the legally and ethically correct action to take.
The QS will be developing new procedures taking into account the frameworks of the Work Health and Safety Act, so as to minimise risks to our employees as they conduct their business. One recommendation we are discussing in detail is to more clearly define the reasonable practice for paramedics when responding with lights and sirens. We wish our employees to understand their operating procedures that will not only protect our paramedics, but also the safety of the public. We are also recommending that a clear rationale and instructions for using the exemptions listed for emergency vehicles in the Transport Operations Road Use Management Road Rules Regulation be drafted and made known to employees. Throughout this inquiry, we have reviewed the competency standards and current research in QAS driver training. We are implementing an updated training regime which reinforces the importance of professional judgment, duty of care, situational awareness, and the ethical practices of non-maleficence and beneficence. We are also examining the processes of reintroducing paramedics to the workplace following extended times of leave, such as in Maxine's case. We are also closely examining foreign ambulance services and are ready to adopt their new ideas if they benefit the QAS. For example, some countries have begun trialling a driver review program whereby employees' driving behaviour is recorded and a coaching system is put in place to ensure all drivers are fit and ready to respond to incidents in the fastest and safest way possible, making the best judgments en route. So far, these trials have shown positive correlation for improvement in driver decisions. As a public service, the implementation of this strategy would serve to keep the QAS at the highest level of accountability and transparency, a cornerstone in not only ethical practice, but in the laws and standards we abide by. Finally, we are very invested in the implementation of the Emergency Vehicle Prioritisation System. The system is designed to create a marked reduction in traffic incidents involving emergency vehicles. This system has been trialled in other cities around Queensland with great success, reducing accidents and response times.
From your point of view, did Maxine do the right thing by staying on the scene of the accident, even if it resulted in the death of a child?
It is clear that any ambulance officer involved in an accident, either caused by their driving, like in Maxine's case, or just by the presence of the ambulance, are required to immediately stop and provide assistance. This is required by law and in the legislation of our ambulance service. However, in saying that, it is also clear that amendments need to be made to our policies in order to clarify this and reduce the ambiguity of these situations.
Thank you for your time and insight, John. That concludes our exclusive coverage of this week's top story. Thank you for watching. I'm Tracy Grimshaw. Good night.